There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Shawn Breeze Books. Welcome back to my channel and my Autumn 2025 most anticipated releases. The fall is typically a sleepier time for book releases, particularly toward the end of the year, but I've got a bunch of interesting ones rustled up to tell you about. The first two are short story collections. Let's start with Quietly Loving Everyone, which is a wonderful title for any kind of book. And I think the comma is pretty important there. Quietly Loving Everyone, by Curtis John McRae. He is the fiction editor at Vehicle Press, so that may be part of why Vehicle Press is publishing it, but I'm assuming the stories show literary merit as well. And I've been intrigued by this, maybe especially because of the title, since I heard about it. And it has a 4.76 star rating on Goodreads with 21 ratings. They can't all be working for you, Vehicle Press. Stories of everyday Canadian life. Next, an author I'm a big fan of, based on one of his novellas and a couple of his short stories. That is Cary Fagan. And this is his latest short story collection called A Fast Horse Never Brings Good News, coming out in October. I read and absolutely loved his novella called The Student. I will link to my review and have sampled a couple stories in an earlier short story collection, The Old World. And I loved one, maybe two stories. I didn't read any further for whatever reason, but based on what I've read of him, he is a great writer, so this is worth checking out. Speaking of great short stories, American author Adam Johnson's short story collection, Fortune Smiles, is one of the best short story collections I've read, certainly by a man, certainly by an American, probably of all time. I read it when it first came out. Probably worth a reread. But I haven't read any of his novels, but he has a novel coming out in October called The Wayfinder, which is a novel set back in history. Hopefully not a work of historical fiction, but a literary novel, I'm sure hoping, set back in history, about a girl from a remote Tongan island. And during the Tonga Empire, so way, way back. The sweep of Wolf Hall, Shogun, and War and Peace. And 730 pages. Oh my goodness. Much closer to home. Very close to home. This Saskatoon, Saskatchewan Canadian publisher, Thistledown Press, has a novel coming out this month that sounds really intriguing. It's called A Snake and a Feathered Bird by Angie, Ellis. It's also a work set back in history. It's about an adopted boy on Vancouver Island in the mid-1870s. He's 3 years old when the story opens, comes to live with adoptive parents, and lots of plot ensues. It's described as a coming-of-age literary novel. Angie Ellis is a writer from Vancouver Island. That one sounds like a Shawn book for sure. Here is a new work from Charcoal Press. A Brazilian novel in translation, An Infinite Sadness by Antonio Xerxenesky would be my best guess at pronouncing that. Translated from the Portuguese by Hahn. Opens in a small village in the Swiss Alps, which threw me off. What country is this writer from? In the aftermath of World War II, and has to do with particle physics and psychiatry. A sanitarium in the Swiss Alps is an important part of the setting, and I don't need to know any more than that, but books put out by Charcoal Press usually, not always, but usually work for me, so that's one worth checking out. Here is a Canadian novel called Until They Sleep by Nadia Staikos, coming out right in the 1st of October. Nadia Staikos lives in Toronto, and this is her debut novel from Guernica Editions. The protagonist, Frona, believes that she's the most sinful person in her Greek mountain village. A dark, comedic fairy tale with a magical feminist bent. So that's what I know about that. Next, a Chinese novel. I Deliver Parcels in Beijing by Anyan. Translated from the Chinese by Jack Hargreaves. One worker's daily life in the Chinese gig economy. Originally published in China in 2023. Oh, this one is particularly intriguing to me. Possibly for the reason that I need a lot more essays in my reading life. I don't read nearly enough essays, and I want to rectify that. And here is one called To Essay. The noun will be pronounced essay, but I believe the verb should be pronounced essay. to essay by Rusana Bardarska, coming out in mid-October. Bardarska is a Bulgarian writer, essayist, and philosopher, known for her innovative approach to literature that combines narrative fiction with intellectual reflection. The only word in that description that troubles me, and some of you that follow me quite closely will already be able to tell me what it is, philosopher, but the rest of it sounds pretty darned intriguing. Translated from the Bulgarian by Christopher Buxton, Zornitsa, Hristova, and the author, Rusana Bardarska. This book, which I think is a series of smaller texts, explores the human condition through narrative fiction, essay, and philosophical inquiry. Maybe this is the book that's going to cure me of my allergy. No, I think my allergy to philosophy isn't curable. The problem is philosophy, not my attitude towards it. But still, it does sound intriguing. A lot of books in October. I am intrigued by Prototype Publishing, based on reading one of their books quite recently and enjoying it. This is one coming out in October. Mr. Outside by Klaces. It might be set in a COVID-like setting because it's a time of restricted movement. And the narrator visits his elderly, reclusive father who is packing up to move into a care home. That sounds like a Shawn book. Caleb Klaces, rather handsome fellow, born in Birmingham. And his first two books were works of poetry. A novel called Property by Kate Cayley, described as a modern class-conscious Miss Dalloway, coming out by Coach House Books. She is a writer very involved in theater and children's writing and poetry and short fiction. Lives in Toronto. Speaking of essays, also in October is a collection of essays called In the Field by Sadiqa de Meijer. Comes out in mid-October, and these essays examine questions such as what meaning does a birthplace hold? What drives us to make contact with a work of art? How do we honor the remains of the dead? Based just on those three questions, this is going to the top of my must not only acquire, but read soon pile. She's a Canadian poet. Born in Amsterdam, raised in Canada, lives in Kingston, Ontario. Her memoir, Alphabet, is the memoir of moving from the Dutch language into English. Ooh, that sounds good too. A novel by a writer based in Regina, Melanie Schnell. It's her second novel, and it's coming out in October from Radiant Press, The Chorus Beneath Our Feet. The premise is a grief-stricken soldier accompanying his best friend's body home after 8 years away to find his mute sister Mary is not only missing, she is wanted for questioning about the murder of a baby in the city's Central Park. Oh my goodness. Asian American writer Gish Jen is on my must-read more by this author list because I loved her linked short stories, Thank You, Mr. Nixon, a year or two ago so much. She has a novel coming out in October called Bad Bad Girl, a funny and sad autobiographical novel about a troubled, tumultuous mother-daughter relationship, and I'm here for it. The last one on my list for October is by a Nigerian-Canadian writer, Bunmi Oyensan, a collection of intertwined stories called A Ladder of Bones. And these stories take place in West Africa, Canada, America, and the Caribbean. I'm curious how they are intertwined, and I love the title, so what else do I need to know? Comes out on Halloween, people. Must look into that one from Guernica. November. The first one I have for November is a work of literary fiction in translation by a French writer, The Last of Its Kind, by Sybil Grimbert, translated from the French by Alessia Jensen. Coming out from Bookhug Press. Set back in 1835, a young zoologist goes to Iceland and witnesses a massacre of a colony of great auks. Is that how you pronounce it? Auks. I'll put a picture of an ox so you know what I'm talking about. Sybil Grimbert. It's based in Paris. I'm mentioning this even though he's not a writer that works for me. I'm more interested in his literary personality and hearing him interviewed and hearing his reviews of other books than I am in reading what he writes, but maybe I should give the latest one a try. What could possibly go wrong? Palaver by Brian Washington, a queer black writer in the States, and this one is set in Tokyo. Oh my god, he's just written a book about me in Tokyo. The protagonist works as an English tutor, drinking his nights away with his friends at a gay bar. I didn't go to gay bars. I went to local pubs, but drank my nights away. That's back in the day, pre-Kenji, of course. and then he gets into a sexual relationship with a married man. And he has troubled relationships and is basically estranged from his family back in Houston. Oh, I'm intrigued. Comes out November 4th. A memoir by a queer Palestinian writer, Fire in Every Direction, by Tarek Bakoni. I've gone to every website possible. There is no translator, so it was written in English. A love story, coming-of-age story from the Middle East to London in 1948 to the present. Lots of Palestinian and queer political stuff there, so that would be mandatory reading for all of us, would it not? Here is one that the publisher Sandorf Passage is bringing out. The Competition of Unfinished Stories by Sener Osman. I think it's translated from the Kurdish, but perhaps from the Turkish, and I haven't been able to find out which it is, because the novel is set in Turkish-occupied Kurdistan. The protagonist is a vehement atheist who teaches theology as he's trying to complete a short story collection, hence the title. A strange and powerful novel on the schizophrenia and emasculation of life under colonial occupation. Ooh, that sounds good. I have an advanced reading copy of that. All right, well, I was just about done editing this video when I found out about one more that I had to sneak in here for November. It is called Only Son by Kevin Moffat, and it was nominated for the National Book Award for Fiction this year. It sounds like such a Shawn book, I just had to include it. It opens in Florida in the early 80s. 9-year-old kid watches his dead father's possessions hauled away. It's a wacky tale of grief, childhood grief. His teachers are wacky. His mother sounds like a piece of work. Everyone's trying to teach him stuff, but he doesn't get it, or they're not the right teachers or something. 25 years later, he's in Southern California, married with a son of his own, and more plot ensues. And just some of the reviews, I read a review on Instagram today that just sold me on it completely, so I'm very excited about it. Coming out from McSweeney's Publishing. Next is a novel, a queer novel, by a writer who is based in Minneapolis, as far as I can tell, called Like Family, which very much sounds like a Shawn book coming out from the Dial Press. A near stranger dies in their small town. That sends shockwaves and various narratives unfurling and becoming uncovered amongst a tight-knit group of friends. Warm, joyful, smart, and nuanced. Oh my goodness. You had me at warm, joyful, smart, and nuanced. That's it for November, and as we all know, there's very little in the way of new releases in December. I managed to find 4. 3 of them by the same author. And I think all of them by the same publisher, actually. This is by a Palestinian journalist, editor, and writer, Soraya Antonius, Anglophone Palestinian. This novel, The Lord, and no translator is mentioned, but perhaps the Anglophone part would explain that, is set during the 1936 Arab Revolt in Mandatory Palestine. Ooh, sounds great. NYRB is also bringing up 3 more volumes by a writer that I discovered this year and have 2 other books by, and now there's 3 more coming out. So Joe Smith, prick up your ears. You probably already knew about these, but Amit Chowdhury. One is Incompleteness, New and Selected Essays, coming out in December. The other is another novel called The Immortals. It's about a voice teacher and their student set in Bombay in the 1980s. And another novel called A New World about a divorcee, an economics professor from the American Midwest, comes home to Calcutta with his young son. The one that I read earlier this year, a buddy read with Joe Smith, was a novella called A Strange and Sublime Address. All right, so that's what I got. Oh my goodness, some really intriguing ones. Which one of these jump out at you the most? Thanks for watching.